A note from the producers. This episode includes discussion of child sexual abuse and trafficking. Listener discretion advised.
I'm Brian.
I'm Glennis.
And welcome back to Vibes Only,
the podcast. Anyway, we have someone on our show today, Eliza Orlins, our friend, our collaborator. She has been a public defender in the city of New York.
Survivor player.
Iconic Survivor player.
It's a fucking stick. You know her, you love her, Eliza Orlins.
Eliza, we are literally thrilled to have you. Thank you for joining us early. Our community knows we record early in the morning, so we appreciate it.
It's outrageous. I actually never get up this early, and I despise you both for this.
Well,
it's actually indicative of how much I love you.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise I would not be here.
Yes, I take that as a compliment. So thank you so much. We appreciate it.
And we just learned that you love the MTA.
I do. I'm a huge, huge fan of the subway. I take it all the time. I wish it functioned even better.
Yeah, ride or die. I was just complaining about my commute this morning into the office and the lack of Wi-Fi on the MTA, which is like my one charge for Mamdani. I need him to like take that on. I want Wi-Fi on the trains more than I want free buses, personally.
Well, you don't take the bus. I'm a bus rider.
I occasionally take the bus. I'm a pro bus human.
I actually don't take the bus anymore, but when I lived on 14th Street, when that M14, when they closed down 14th Street, that changed my life. OG bus lover, but it happens to be that now I rarely take it.
Shout out M14 D and A. Okay, so Eliza, we are here today to talk to you about this tremendous thing that you did last week, which was you live streamed for 24 hours the Epstein files. And there's so much that we can unpack here because one, I think it's like extremely important that we as people on the left continue the drumbeat of talking about the Epstein files, of talking about the Epstein class. You know, we saw what happened to Massie last week in the primary, one of the only Republicans to actually demand some accountability around the Epstein files. What was your why for doing that? How did that idea come to be? How did it happen? And what was your experience?
Do you guys know Steve Schmidt, co-founder of the Lincoln Project? And he is a steering committee member of Save America movement. We've known each other for a long time. He supported my run for office 5 years ago. And he reached out and asked me to come on his live stream to talk about the Rape Academy story and the legality and all that. And so we had a great hour-long conversation. And he was like, I was looking at your social media. You've been on this Epstein beat. And so he connected me with Save America movement. And I got on a call with his producer. And she said, listen, Eliza, we would like to find a way to really bring attention to the Epstein files and not allow people to forget this story. Do you have any ideas? You know, there's this redacted reading room in Tribeca. It's a temporary exhibit. We'd love to bring attention to it. And I was like, I don't know, why don't I do like a Cory Booker style filibuster and just read it for 24 hours and live stream it? And she was like, oh my God, you are insane and I love it. Yes, let's make this happen.
Period.
And the Save America movement really dove into doing all the production stuff. I mean, they brought in an incredible team that did all of the tech stuff, that booked a lot of the daytime guests and had like this whole run of show for 24 hours of who was going to step in and read for me. And I'm looking at it and I realized that we have no one from like midnight to 7:30 a.m. And I was like, I'm going to die. Like, I can't actually physically do that. And so then I started reaching out to more people and we like ended up booking a ton of folks, some of our West Coast friends and activists and influencers. The survivors joined for both the open and the close, which was like very powerful. We had politicians and just incredible people joining throughout to give me little breaks in between. It was so exhausting, but I think so impactful and so important. And now, you know, that stream lives on. And a lot of the survivors said, this is something that now we can point to. We can say, hey, like this stuff was read out loud, you know, and people can't ignore this. It really brought a lot of attention to the reading room as well, which thankfully just announced that they are going on the road. They've raised enough money that they're going to go on the road. They are opening 2 blocks from the White House.
Wow.
And so Trump is going to be doing his big birthday 250 celebration, and the Epstein files are going to be there in their printed glory, these bound books that weigh 17,000 pounds. It's really extraordinary.
Okay, most importantly, did you wear a diaper?
No, it wasn't a real filibuster. I was allowed to go to the bathroom and eat and take, you know, little breaks. It wasn't a true filibuster, thankfully.
No, that is Absolutely incredible. Kudos to you and the whole team for pulling it off. That's not an easy thing to do. And it's such an important topic for you to be shining a light on, which Glennis and I have both seen you do on your own social. What would you say was a surprising reaction from people who were watching, listening, engaging? How was it received?
What's fascinating to me, I mean, I've actually been talking about Epstein online since 2018.
Wow.
Because the Manhattan District Attorney did something extremely unusual that I had never seen for one of my clients in my 15 years of public defending, which is they asked for what's called a downward departure in his sex offender registration level. Basically, if you get convicted of a sex crime, you get a SORA, Sex Offender Registration Act level. And in every case, they're always trying to make it the most severe. So they're always trying to do an upward departure. And I had never, ever, ever seen that you basically have this chart and there are points assigned. And on Jeffrey Epstein, they asked for a downward departure on his SORA level, which is completely unheard of. I can't emphasize enough how absolutely unheard of this is, to the point where Judge Pickholtz, a judge who I was very familiar with, ended up issuing a written decision slamming the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, saying, this is outrageous and I will not do a downward departure and how dare you, basically. It was something that caught my eye because I felt that Cy Vance, who was the Manhattan District Attorney at the time, was doing a lot of things like this, not prosecuting Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein, these rich, powerful white men. And meanwhile, my clients who were poor people of color were getting the book thrown at them. This was when I was thinking about running against him. And so I've been talking about Jeffrey Epstein for a really long time. And then reading tens of thousands of pages of the Epstein files, I've read the Ghislaine Maxwell trial transcripts. I mean, these things are truly horrific. And what I realized in doing this 24-hour live stream, both from the feedback I got from people watching, but also from some of the people who jumped in to do some of the reading for me, is most people, in spite of having heard so much about this Epstein stuff, have not actually read much of it. And I think they found it much more disturbing than they even knew. Because when you are reading these things about 14-year-old girls being preyed upon, being literally picked up at their camp, at Interlochen camp, told they're going to be given scholarships because they're so talented and they want to support them, and it's poorer kids who are having family issues, Ghislaine Maxwell picking them up and then bringing them and really literally trafficking them to Jeffrey Epstein to get sexually assaulted. People are horrified. It just reiterated to me how important it is that we don't stop beating this drum, because people don't actually know what's in the Epstein files. And, if I could do one 24-hour live stream a week, I would do it. I just physically am not capable. It's a lot, I'm finally recovered a week later, but it was, it's really important.
Yeah, it's I have a pit in my stomach even hearing you talk about this, because it's such a good reminder that this Epstein class, what Jeffrey Epstein and his cohort of predators did to these young women and girls, is so predatory and was so coordinated at all levels of society. And we cannot stop talking about it. There are still 2 million files that haven't been released. They've released 3 million. More. Okay, so more than 2 million files that have not yet been released, and Donald Trump is saying, no, we've done our job. We've released all the files, and it's absolute bullshit. And I think the power of you as this creator who has a huge following and your career as a public defender, you are able to, with authority, speak about this, and with the legal authority as well. And you make it very tangible for people to understand.
What people don't realize about the lack of release of the files is it's not just DOJ files that are missing. It's improper redactions in the files that we do have. And also, Senator Wyden has been an absolute champion on this, but there's a whole host of files that aren't under the Department of Justice that are actually Treasury files that implicate Epstein, that implicate banks, that implicate Jamie Dimon. There are all these financial files that we should be entitled to, and we should be saying release the Treasury files, not just when we say release the files, people were really talking about the DOJ files. But these Treasury files implicate all these people who were complicit, who knew exactly who Jeffrey Epstein was and what he was doing. They should be released also.
I do want to move us on from Epstein in a second, but we just saw Thomas Massie lose his re-election in Kentucky. What is next for the movement to release the files, for the campaign, the pressure on Trump and the administration to release it? What does that look like?
Part of it is just the amplification of this story, which is why I was so grateful that you two asked me to come on to talk about this, because I really think the more people refuse to let this go, I do think this is still a bipartisan issue. Obviously, Massie lost. Obviously, Trump and his people are like, oh no, we already did our job. We don't have to talk about this anymore. But there's still a lot of Republicans who are extremely upset about this. I don't think we can rule out the fact that the general public has been talking about this and has been obsessed with this for a long time, and people think this is not okay. So we need to just keep amplifying this. I think the reading room traveling around to different cities is going to be huge, because I think there's something extremely powerful about seeing these bound copies of the Epstein files and saying there are folks who read this for 24 hours. They didn't even get through a full volume. It would take, even if we read for 24 hours a day, if we read it like a good clip, it would take us 4.5 years to read all the files in this little space, in this room. There's plans to bring it to places where maybe these are swing states, leading up to the midterms. Maybe these are places where when we throw that stuff in people's faces, they're going to say, hey, can I really support someone who's not going to hold these people accountable? Who trafficked 14-year-old girls? Like, the survivors who were there, there's this big, I think you've both been there, but there's this big timeline. And when the survivors were there, they asked if they could add themselves to the timeline. And so they wrote handwritten and they put themselves by date, 14 years old, this person was trafficked to Prince Andrew. At 14 years old, Donald Trump, and they placed themselves on the timeline. And it's just like very powerful to see. And so I think not ignoring this story and making sure that we keep beating this drum for accountability really matters.
Wow. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, obviously we're no friends of Thomas Massie, but we want to make sure that Congress continues to push the issue. I'm glad that Khanna has been a leader on this in the way that he has, and I feel like we need more Democrats and Republicans too, but we need more people to step up.
Yeah, I completely agree. We should not let this go. Obviously, I've spent my career as a public defender, so I have read about horrific crimes for 15 years. I've represented over 5,000 people, and I was reading the Epstein files and I found myself like extremely upset. And I kind of was like, but I've read horrific allegations. Like, why is this so different? Like, kind of examining why I felt so upset by it. And I realized that every time I've ever read a horrific case before where there are allegations of something horrible happening, it was because there was going to be accountability. Most of my clients end up taking pleas, end up spending decades in prison if they've done something like that. And I realized in reading all this stuff, I'm reading about Elon Musk, about Donald Trump, about Leon Black, about all of these people who are leading the free world, whether they're the richest men in the world, whether they're the most powerful men in the world, and none of them have faced any accountability. No one has been prosecuted or held accountable for the things that they've done or the things they were complicit in. And it just it really makes you sick to your stomach. It really is one of those things that just is such a gut punch to be like, oh wow, like they just have evaded all measure of accountability.
And the system is designed that way. And I just want to double down on that point. It is so disheartening and disgusting, and it's so important. Anyone listening, if you see a story on Epstein, please share it. If you are in conversation and someone doesn't want to talk about it, of course, don't force them. But we have to continue to talk about the structure and the system that is in place and being protected by Republicans.
To
that end, wait, we're going to pivot a little bit, Eliza.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about Democrats for a second. Did you have a chance to read the, I'm using air quotes, autopsy report?
Yikes. I looked at it. I was like, wow, this is terrible. This is not good.
It's not the Epstein files, but it also can make you a little sick to your stomach because
Crazy.
What the fuck? How is this where we're at? That we're getting this half-baked 8th grade book report ass version of what was a pretty catastrophic year for Dems. Obviously, the release, the non-release, and then forced release was just probably couldn't have been handled worse than it was. I can't really imagine a scenario. I'm curious in the reactions to the autopsy that you've seen from people, because the internet was set ablaze pretty quickly. Are there lessons that you feel people have learned from 2024 that feel that they are moving Democrats forward at this point in time, either as a reaction to the autopsy or just a reaction to the year overall.
Did you read Rob Flaherty's Autopsy?
I have not.
No, I didn't read
Okay.
it. What did he say?
He wrote like a very long autopsy of his own, kind of. And
for those who don't know, just flagging, he was a deputy campaign manager for Kamala Harris.
Right. And I think it was pretty honest about their shortcomings in a lot of ways. Obviously, the stuff I find the most interesting at the moment is the way that creators are utilized and kind of the like lack of coordination. I mean, we've seen on the right for years, if not decades, the way they invest in people to be political messengers for their party, and the way that Democrats are like, oh, in the last month before an election, we can just like chuck a bunch of money at people and it's going to work. And that's just not working. And it doesn't work. And it will never work. And there has to be like a real investment in left-leaning creators who are trusted messengers, who are not just Johnny come lately, really last second things. And so I think Rob's honesty about that's something that I'm kind of taking away, that like the Democrats are finally coming to the realization that there has to be real infrastructure for online messaging from the left, because no one is watching cable news anymore. Truly. No one watches cable news. Like if you think MS Now or CNN is going to be your messenger, like you're deeply delusional.
Right.
It's just not happening. It's kind of why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm like, we all have to fight fascism with everything we have. And so, we really need to be investing year round for a long time, extended period of time. Like it can't just be at the last second. Like it has to be starting now for 2028. And we're late. We're already late. We're decades late. But it better now than never. Every moment is the best moment to do it till this point, and so I really hope that that's people's takeaway, and that people recognize like the real importance of political creators.
Well, I do, that's for sure.
I know you do.
Eliza, we can't let you go without asking you about, did you know that Brian and I are super fans of Survivor?
I mean, Brian and I definitely have messaged about Survivor a bunch of times over the years.
Yeah.
So we have to, speaking of accountability, we have to talk. You have said publicly you believe you will never be asked back to Survivor. Why is that?
I pretty aggressively went very hard at CBS. I think CBS has taken, obviously, as we all know, a hard right turn. They have, capitulated to this administration, both by paying this massive settlement, $16 million. And then, Barry Weiss taking over CBS News. They've just really become a MAGA network. They canceled Colbert. And the survivor of it all is they cast this woman who was known for using slurs on her original season and ended up, going on a drunken anti-Semitic rant against me. Yes. And it just kind of all falls in line with the way that CBS has turned these days. And instead of saying, yeah, listen, maybe we shouldn't have cast her, we're going to call her out for this absolute horrific behavior, and we're not going to feature her, or we're not going to put her on red carpets, or we're not going to highlight her, they sent CBS Legal after me and tried to intimidate me from saying anything. And I was like, oh, you guys, you're messing with the wrong bitch. Nope. I have not done anything wrong. You got the wrong girl. And so I very publicly called them out the week of the premiere. I didn't just burn that bridge. I threw a Molotov cocktail at it and really blew it up. And so, yeah,
well,
I don't think I'll be being asked back.
Did you see the popularity favorability rankings after the season?
I did that.
I mean, Glennis, did you see it?
No, I don't know what
Stephanie was in literal last place, had the most unfavorable views from all viewership.
Can we talk about that last tribal when she's looking in the camera and she's like, Jonathan, what? She is a horrible person. Oh my God, did you not watch it?
Wait, at Final Tribal?
Yeah, she was she was you're an all-around player.
Sure.
The same way that she was going super zoomed into camera when she was going on the tirade against you, Eliza. It was absolutely nuts. Completely agree with you that she should not be platformed as a human being. And We love you.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, no, she's the lowest rated. And I don't think that people would have otherwise known about this without that video that I put out like at premiere week, because they didn't do anything to make her even look that bad on the show. Jonathan was Roy Moore's bodyguard. Did you know that?
No,
I worked for Roy Moore.
Are you serious?
Yeah. He's a huge MAGA person too. Of course, they had their MAGA alliance.
I didn't know that, but I knew. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
right.
the energy was wrong. The energy was incorrect. I hated watching him all season, to be honest. I really didn't. I was not feeling it. Nobody was, according to that data that we saw.
The MAGA contestants all being the lowest rated, I was like, that is so beautiful. It's like Chrissy, cut from the same cloth Chrissy, Jonathan, Coach, and Steph being the bottom four. It was just like chef's kiss.
See ya.
Who went out too soon? Like, what one person went out too soon in 50?
Well, I mean, Kyle Frazier.
Yeah. That's T.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's a good guy, fellow lawyer.
Yeah.
Outspoken, like just like a solid, nice, lovely human. And especially going out with an injury like that really sucks.
Yeah. Wrap them ankles, guys. Come on.
Yeah. Do some like Achilles training. I don't know.
I don't know.
Poor guy.
Yeah, that was rough.
Eliza, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate your work and your advocacy for the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, for your continued efforts to make the Democratic Party better and smarter, for making all of us smarter online. We're thrilled to have you, and thank you for your time.
Love you both, and I'll see you soon.
Yes, very soon.
Thank you all for listening. If you are watching, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like, and drop us a comment. And if you are audio only, please leave us a review so that more listeners can find the pod. We will be back here, same time, same place next week. Thanks, guys.